Perfect. So yeah, what we thought we could do is chat through your time on the program, some of the benefits you've got from it, some of the results, and I suppose most importantly, what you've learned and what advice you'd give as well, if that makes sense. So maybe we start at the beginning when you first came in. So how would you describe that, the position you're in, some of the maybe the problems you were experiencing, or some of the things you wanted to fix, correct, or focus on when you first joined? What did that look like?
Yeah, so when I first started, I actually had a quad tear, which was unfortunate. And I had played sort of representative level hockey my whole life, but never really cracked that next level, so which is a bit unfortunate. But I really wanted to increase my speed, and the other thing I wanted to be able to do was work on my endurance across a game and sort of reduce injury or manage injuries a bit better. And I think since starting the program, I was able to do that. And you guys were really supportive in my injury recovery as well. And that really helped, because that's always a really difficult time. I think just being able to have something structured where I didn't have to plan it was so helpful. And just being able to open up my phone, look at the app and go, okay, I've got a program. I can just get in the gym and get it done. That was great for me, because I already program all day for my job, and the last thing I feel like doing in the afternoons is programming, and that was really helpful for me, so that was great. And the members area was really good too, like getting some of the dietetics tips. That's something I've probably not had a lot of education on as a child or even as a young adult and now into my adulthood, so I found that really helpful, just how to prep and what to eat before training. And now after training to recover and making sure that I'm getting the right stuff on game days too, which is good.
Definitely, yeah. And it sounds like some of the resources there were really helpful. How did you go about using them? Because obviously we kind of at points kind of signpost you to certain resources. There's obviously quite a lot of them. So
Yes.
how did you go about utilizing those? Did you kind of know what you were going to try and use it for? Did you know there were certain resources you were looking for? Or did you kind of just like have a look through and see what you came across?
Yeah, I've always had a bit of trouble on game days with managing or knowing what time to eat prior to, or even just knowing what to eat, and how to fuel myself. And I think I knew what I wanted to learn out of the resources, and I have a little bit of health knowledge behind me anyway. So in the way of anatomy and physiology, but not necessarily nutrition and dietetics. So I kind of went through those resources and just tried to educate myself as much as I could in around that area. But I think I knew what I was looking for. I just didn't know what I needed, and that was really helpful. So I just had a bit of a browse through more than anything, a bit of a read, and tried to take out some key things.
Amazing. So having been through the program then, what would you say your life's like, hockey's like, having gone through that compared with when you joined? Obviously you came in with the injury, lack of, perhaps a little bit of lack of knowledge around that nutrition, around match day and that kind of thing you've mentioned. So what's the difference now? What have been like your biggest results, would you say?
Yeah, so now I'm back to playing 60-minute games, so with a higher intensity, objectively. Like I've had my dad come down and watch me, and he's even said in comparison to the last few years, like he can notice a difference in my game, my speed, my endurance. He said like when I was younger, I was quite a good runner. I was quite quick, and he sort of noticed an increase in that speed on the field as well. And he like even in my body shape, and it's changed, and it looks sort of more as I looked previously. Like I've lost a little bit of weight, I've gained some muscles, so that's been really good. But overall, I've got more single leg strength as well, where I haven't previously. And I know for injury prevention, that's super important. And I'm really grateful for the program for that too, because it's taught me all about how to do that single leg strengthening and how to do it the right way, which is good. So I'm just, I think generally I'm just a bit stronger and faster than I was probably before as I started when I was injured. And you guys coached me through that injury period, which was so helpful too, because I have a habit of just blowing out my injury, totally obliterating myself in training, and then coming back and being more injured. So I've had to be a bit more measured and patient, and that was really helpful too.
100%. Is that a big lesson you've learned then about how to manage yourself around the injury? Would you say that's a big lesson you've learned?
Yeah, absolutely. And just taking my time instead of trying to just jump straight back in. Like I am getting a bit older and muscle tissue changes over time, as you know. So just being patient with my injury, building the strength first to have a good foundation to then move forward and actually be able to do what I want to do, instead of just smashing myself in the gym and then going, oh, why am I in pain?
For sure. So it sounds, yeah, it sounds like there's almost like a degree of like patience and understanding of that process that's come out of that. So it sounds like before you would have just, and we're all guilty of this, but just be like, well, let's just, hammer the rehab and, train in the same way with rehab as I would do with my normal training, and then almost go into like a bit of a cycle. Whereas now, I think what you're saying is like you could probably manage another injury, touch wood, another injury won't happen, but if it did, you'd know how to manage it more effectively, and you probably have a bit more understanding of yourself and that process, and having a bit more patience. Yeah. Brilliant. Yeah. That's a really good one. Are there any other lessons you've learned? Any other kind of big take homes, not just aside from obviously getting stronger and faster, but that's a big lesson there about having patience with the process. Any other kind of big lessons you've learned from like that process of going through a training and rehab cycle?
Yeah, I think consistency is a big thing too, and being able to show up every day, or every day that you've got training. I know that consistency was something I struggled with the whole way through, and then obviously have had other events pop up recently that have actually stopped my training. So I think being consistent is important, and I think that will help me manage these things long term. But it doesn't mean I have to train every day either. It just means I have to train smarter, not necessarily harder. So even that's been a really good lesson. And other than that, I think it's just changing my mindset around training, going in and, like I said, not having to absolutely just smash myself in the gym so I'm exhausted and sore and feeling really tired. Like, it's just being that little bit smarter with my training.
Definitely, that's brilliant. Even just having that is a good result in itself for the long term, and that's something we spoke about when we first had a conversation, wasn't it? That a lot of the results you get on the program, or at least I try to help people with, is having something which you can take away for the long term, like for life, rather than just here's a short term fix and then 6 months later you're kind of back to square one. So you've got a different approach to things now, which will stand you in good stead for way beyond like the period that you've been on the program for.
Yeah, and I can see the benefit in tailoring towards a hockey specific program too. I suppose, as you know, I've done different modes of training prior to coming to this program, and I think making sure that I am doing those single leg strengthening, the unilateral work, so the one arm chest press and things like that, just seeing the benefit for that as well in the way that we do the counterbalance and counter stability. It's really important, and probably something that other training programs I've done don't or haven't offered me as a sport specific thing. So that was good too. I think just being able to see that actually helped a lot.
Perfect. And that's all right. And then last question, what advice would you give to other people on the program, and then those thinking about potentially joining the program? Is there any advice you give to those different groups?
I think it's worth doing. I really enjoyed that you guys checked in with us. And again, just consistency for me was something. So like 3 days a week is super manageable. It's just making the time and space for it. I think it's a commitment to train, same as we do with hockey anyway. We turn up to train once or twice a week and then play a game. It's no more than doing that. So we think, just turning up for yourself more than anything if you want to push it, go forward. And I think having a really good sports foundation, a good lifting foundation, those sorts of things is really important to progress your career, because we know recovery and strength and conditioning is just as important as the on-field stuff. So it's just important to get in and get it done.
For sure. Love that. And what about lastly, in terms of someone who may be experiencing an injury or going through that process? You've obviously learned a lot from going through that yourself. Is there any advice you'd give to someone in a similar position to you going through that in terms of the lessons you've learned?
Yeah, I think be patient. It's annoying and it's hard, but giving yourself the time and space to just recover and recover well, so that you're not out for longer than you need to be, or you have to, you go back and then you're back injured again. And I think having a guided, structured program is super helpful. And then, like I said, you don't have to put any sort of thinking into it. It's just you're showing up to the gym, doing your program, getting it done, and then being able to go home, do your recovery, eat well so you're healing, all those things. I think I've learnt lots from that, and I think that if I can reflect on all my injuries as a teenager to now as an older adult, I definitely could have managed those better, but didn't know at the time. Whereas now, I've probably got a little bit more knowledge behind me, and I'm super grateful. I think this program's great, and I would have loved to have done it for longer. It's just unfortunate at this point in time I can't keep going.
Totally get that. Well, look, thank you so much. What I'll do is just stop the recording so that we can wrap it up.